Mrs. Adelson, maintaining her innocence, could not have shown more remorse. That line, "stopping the courtroom cold" by Jackie Fulford, the attorney for Donna Adelson. Today we're asking, what was she thinking? Was this a legal strategy or an absolute act of desperation?
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. This is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. Today, since there was so much offered up, we are continuing to break down the surreal sentencing of Donna Adelson. She, of course, is the 75-year-old matriarch now serving a life sentence. She, believe it or not, was moved out of Leon County the next morning. They could not wait to get rid of Donna Adelson and is now in custody of the Florida Department of Corrections. But she is serving a life sentence for orchestrating the murder of FSU law professor Dan Markel, shot on July 18th, 2014, twice in the head in his Tallahassee driveway, succumbing to his injuries the next day. If you missed it last night, we had a former classmate and close friend of Dan Markel, Tamara Demko, who shared some unbelievable stories specifically related to Harvey Adelson and her fear of him, even back then in 2014. The COE is going to post that separately under the video tab today. You will want to hear what she had to say. We're going to break down Harvey's angry courtroom outburst, Donna's tearful denial, and we're going to look closely today, something we haven't really done yet, at Jackie Fulford's bizarre attempt to re-litigate the trial. It almost seems like she was trying the case yet again, arguing that Donna had showed maximum remorse even while denying guilt. So it was Jackie Fulford laying the groundwork for an appeal, trying to sway public opinion. She took a shot at the media and the public, or just venting in the face of devastating loss. Here today to break it down, our best guest. You've got Terry Austin. She is an attorney and a legal analyst out of New York, New York. Next up, Dr. Melissa Hamilton. She's a professor of law at Surrey in the UK. She's also a one-time corrections officer and a police officer here stateside. So she can offer some interesting analysis into what's going on with Donna right now. She entered the Women's Center, I believe, in Lowell yesterday, and she is in for a completely different world there. And a new best guest here, Dr. Stacy Walton Duggar. She's a lifelong Tallahassee resident, the former wife of Dan Markel's divorce attorney. So we've got 1 degree of separation, 2 degrees maybe of separation, and a witness to years of local legal drama surrounding this case in the great city of Tallahassee. So welcome to everybody. Dr. Duggar, let me start with you, and thank you to Tony Hoban. I appreciate this very much, a super sticker here. Dr. Duggar, for you, what has this been like living in Tallahassee, the epicenter of this one-time murder mystery, obviously no longer a mystery, and just these layer upon layers of trials and investigations and all that has gone in over the past 11 years to finally get the wheels of justice in motion? What has this been like for you?
It's been surreal. I was told that Danny was going to be murdered by hitmen on, I think the date must have been June 20th, 2013. So I have watched this unfold.
Hold
Yes.
everything. I don't want to sound like Nancy Grace right now, but hold everything. So you were told a year in advance that
Absolutely.
Dan was going to be taken out, and explain this.
Yes. So do I have the date on the relocation trial correct? Is that, I think it's June 20th.
Possibly. I mean,
anyway, somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
Thomas had a relocation trial for Danny Markel, and I call him Danny because Thomas called him Danny fondly. So I hope that's not disrespectful. But anyway, so he had his relocation trial for Danny. He came home and he said that he won the hearing, but Donna and Harvey were going to have him killed by a hit person.
This is your now ex-husband.
Yes.
What's his name?
Thomas Duggar.
Thomas Duggar,
Yes,
who is
sir.
is he still a divorce attorney in
He
Tallahassee?
is not.
He's not. So
Correct.
he told you on that day. Did he
On
ever
that
go
day.
to? Wow, yesterday we had a crazy show where Tamara Demko told us some wild stuff about Harvey, and today hasn't even been 30 seconds, and I'm hearing this. So,
It's true.
is this a gut instinct from your husband? Or
Well, he did have other murdered clients. So, including one when he had been practicing law for 2 months. So that was unfortunately not that unusual, but this was the first and last time he ever said there was going to be a murder and it was going to be a hit. And he was very certain about that. Although just because he was certain, he couldn't have done anything about it, because you can't go to the police with a theory. I ran into Donna and Harvey Adelson in the courthouse, and I think they're going to kill my client. You can't do that. So,
yeah, but so what was this based on? Was this based on a gut instinct, or did he overhear something? I mean, because this is a year in advance.
It was based on, from watching the trial, it sounds like they were in the hallway in the courthouse outside of the room, and it was based on encountering them. He was 100% convinced. I'm pretty sure we had the conversation multiple times.
And this was the day that they lost the relocation battle. So
Definitely.
Yes. Donna and Harvey's grandchildren were staying in Tallahassee. Let me go around the horn here. I mean, Dr. Hamilton, I did not know this. I was not expecting to hear this. Last night, just so you all know, Tamara Demko, who is a Harvard Law graduate and went to school with Dan and was very good friends with him at the time, went the day he died, which was actually July 19th that Dan died. She tells a story that she went, and there's no reason not to believe her. She went over, she suspected the Adelsons, and she went over to Wendy Adelson's house. And Wendy Adelson gave a very, I guess, for lack of a better adjective, interesting response to her. She said to Tamara, "I'm so sorry," as though she was apologizing. But she said that the look that Harvey gave her made her nervous enough to go to a church that day to pray and purchase a weapon, and she left Tallahassee. That's how scared she was. So, Dr. Hamilton, some strange things coming out here in the last 2 days, specifically to what Dr. Duggar just said, though, that her ex-husband, the divorce attorney, was certain there was going to be a hit. What do you make of this?
Well, overall, this case has been stranger than fiction for many reasons and continues to be. So even of that revelation, but we've certainly now, in terms of Harvey, seen his eyes convey a lot in his demeanor. But in any event, so one of the things that's been pointed out is we can have suspicions about other people's evil motives, but that doesn't mean it's sufficient that you can go to police. Police are going to say, where is your evidence? And so that is sometimes a disconnect, which you have a really strong feeling about something, but that's not the same as evidence, and certainly not the same as allowing police sufficient probable cause or even reasonable suspicion to do anything about it. And so what happens is then, or can happen, is, deadly consequences, as happened here, because of the difference of suspicion versus what the law needs. And so it's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Terry, I'm coming right back to you, but Dr. Duggar, to you, someone here saying that information should have been shared. I just want to dig down with law enforcement a little bit further on this. So it was something that your your ex-husband, I guess, saw or felt,
Yep.
Yeah, right. So,
And then,
go ahead.
So then we always went to the beach for my daughter's July birthday. So we were at the beach in July of 2014, and Thomas's then employee, now employer, called us at the beach, and he said that Danny, I'm not sure if Danny was still alive at this point, but that Danny had been shot, and it was clear he was not going to live if he hadn't died already. And immediately Thomas said, I can't believe they did it. Immediately.
Wow. In hindsight now, and I know it's a lot easier in hindsight, but do you think that your husband or you or someone should have gone to authorities back in 2013 when your husband said this to you, your then husband?
I just don't know what you're supposed to say. If you go to authorities and say, I think these people are going to have him killed because I got a vibe in a courthouse, not sure how that's going to go over. And in terms of, I don't think Thomas ever told Danny, and I don't think that would have been a kind thing to do, because it was just based on a feeling. Until it happened, it just was what it was.
Yeah. So the day that Danny finally is shot twice, did you think the same thing?
Absolutely, no doubt. And then I believe 3 days later, the story about the Prius came out, which was a little confusing, because Thomas thought that it was going to be a very professional type of hit. And we didn't think that a Prius was a professional type of car to drive. We are from Tallahassee. We're not quite sure how hits work, but we were definitely following along to see how it unfolded, but never a doubt that it was the Adelsons.
Wow. Not to switch gears here very quickly, though. If anyone knows, Lesky Erica, please email me, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. Hearing a lot of conflicting reports that this trial here, the so-called au pair trial, may be continued. If anyone knows, can you please email me? I can't seem to get an answer. survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. Terry Austin, I mean, this is a lot to take in, especially in light of what we heard yesterday from Tamara Demko. But apparently the Adelsons weren't quite as subtle as maybe they thought they were, because you heard from Tamara yesterday saying she literally bought a gun, which you can do in Florida, the same day she crossed paths with Harvey right after this happened. And now you're hearing from Dr. Duggar that during the relocation hearing a year before, she and her now ex-husband knew that this hit was going to happen. Your reaction?
It's shocking, because it does seem like multiple people had this suspicion. And I just wonder whether or not Dan Markel himself had the suspicion. And if so, whether or not there was anything he could have done to protect himself, or something that others could have done to protect him. I mean, you don't have an obligation if you don't know any specifics, because you can't, as we've just discussed, go to the authorities unless there is some probable cause or some suspicion to believe that a crime may in the future occur. But I'm just wondering about the people around Dan, if anyone really did suspect, if he suspected, if there was anything you can do to protect himself. The relocation motion was denied June 18th, 2013. He died, July 19th, a year later. But, it's just frightening to hear these things, because in hindsight, you do wonder, what could have been done? Could he have been saved? Would it have happened anyway, no matter what protection he took? If in fact, and we know that these are now the facts, various juries have said all of these individuals, the Adelsons, they conspired, they hired people to do the hit. They're all in jail, thank goodness. But would it have happened anyway, because of the determination behind each and every one of them, starting with Donna Adelson?
Yeah. Look, at this point, Harvey is, I guess, an unindicted co-conspirator, innocent till proven guilty. But I had my own sense, my own feelings throughout that trial. I bump into him, and it wasn't always a pleasant feeling viscerally, I'll tell you that. Didn't Stephen Webster tell, I don't know if Stephen Webster, who was Dan's post-divorce attorney, certainly suspected the Adelsons the minute this happened. I don't know that he said anything ahead of that. We'll come back to this and kind of drill down on it. But here's an interesting question, just pivoting slightly. and I'll go to back to Terry on this one. Is it a red flag that Georgia asked for restitution at sentencing? Does this mean no indictment of Wendy and Harvey? She threw out a number of like $753,000 that they would like the Adelsons to pay back for the cost of this prosecution, I guess in total. Your thoughts on that? There was a grand jury convening yesterday in Tallahassee. A lot of people thought it was related to Wendy. It was not. Dave Aronberg on the show has said there'll be an indictment in 30 to 45 days. Other people are saying we don't know if we'll see an indictment. What does this say about it, if anything?
Well, first of all, kudos to Georgia Kaplan. She has been amazing throughout each one of these prosecutions. And I think she should ask for restitution because the county has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point with the various trials, including 2 for Catherine McBanois. So I think ask for the money, get as much as you can. And I saw Dave say that he thought there would be an indictment against Wendy before Thanksgiving. I agree with him. I think there will be an indictment. Whether or not it is before Thanksgiving, it's hard to do the timing. But in my opinion, and I said this on your show a long time ago, and I think some of your viewers said, oh, Terry, Wendy's not behind it all, it's Donna. And Donna, I think, was the impetus. I mean, the word mastermind, I think, can apply to everyone. That's one of the things that we heard Donna say, oh my gosh, the prosecution said, first, this one was the mastermind. Now that one's the mastermind. Now I'm the mastermind, but they're all masterminds behind this plan. I think Donna was the impetus, but in my humble opinion, it's Wendy. You have to get Wendy at some point. She's the ex-wife. This is the reason. That's the motive behind it all. I mean, yes, you have a grandmother who can't deal with the separation of her grandchildren. But if it weren't for Wendy, I don't think we would be here. I mean, she talks to her mother. Her mother is unhappy because her daughter's unhappy. So I guarantee. And, I think as attorneys, we probably hesitate to make predictions, but I guarantee she's going after Wendy. I don't know when, but she will be going after Wendy.
This is fascinating. Dr. Hamilton, your thoughts on Wendy? I wasn't planning to go to her quite yet, but we're here. Do you agree with Terry? I mean, I agree to the extent that, first of all, I don't think there's anyone in the family outside of Rob that did not know about this, especially Harvey, who handled a lot of the finances and continues to, and is very frugal. But what about the Wendy factor here, Dr. Hamilton? Terry's contending she knew, and there will be an indictment. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if we looked at this from a domestic abuse perspective, and domestic abuse can happen with ex-partners, is that would point to Wendy being a more integral part of it. And domestic abuse here is, we now conceive it as outside of, including things that are not necessarily domestic violence, although certainly the murder was violent. But there are other aspects that we've been learning about this case that are suggesting of emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, and maybe even coercive control from Wendy and her other family members as well. And because the victim here was male, we haven't really been talking about it from a domestic abuse perspective because we're so used to it being female, particularly for a fatality. It's far more likely that the fatalities in domestic abuse situations are female, but this is pointing out to us that there can be exceptions. And so if we see it from that lens, it makes more sense to understand Wendy's involvement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. This is just absolutely fascinating and disturbing at the same time. Ronna Clements here. Joel, Stephen Webster told Dan to stay away from Wendy because Stephen was afraid Wendy was going to lie and possibly say that Dan had assaulted her. I do, remember bits and pieces of this, but that's also a little bit different than saying the Adelsons are going to come and take your life. So that, that's the next level sort of, I guess, indictment of the Adelsons there. And Dr. Duggar, to you, whose first name is Stacy, by the way, I don't want you to speak too much for your ex-husband. And by the way, he's got an invite to come on here if you'd ever like to, because I'd like to hear this story straight from the proverbial horse's mouth. But what are your thoughts on Wendy? Just having followed this case and being sort of closely linked to it, do you think that we'll see an indictment? Do you think she had a part in this?
Absolutely. First of all, we were talking about Stephen Webster warning Danny about faking domestic violence. That is something that attorneys do advise their clients. Stay away from your ex-spouse, because if you're not there, they can't fake an injury, which does happen. But in terms of Wendy, if she's guilty, in my opinion, based on Tallahassee geography and being a mother, she is absolutely guilty. The route she took from her home to Mosaic Restaurant, and I don't drink, but I know where some liquor stores are. And so that does not make any bit of sense. And as a mother, if I drove up where my children might be, first, I would refuse to leave until I was told what was going on. And if that didn't work, then I would call that daycare or drive to that daycare or do something to make sure my children were okay. I would not stop until I was with my children.
From Greg O'Donnell here. Stephen Webster was attorney before the divorce as well. Please, I didn't know that actually. Please ask the doctor of the timeline. Yeah, for when her, I didn't think that was.
I don't think that's
accurate.
accurate.
Yeah, so they would like to know, Stacey, Dr. Duggar, the timeline for when your ex came off the case, for what reason. Stephen said that Danny went through a few divorce lawyers before him.
So as far as I understand things, and I do have Thomas's referral list, so I know when Danny became a client, Thomas came off of the case after the divorce was finalized. And then he had another attorney, and then Stephen Webster, from what I understand.
We're going to play some sound from Jackie, because her arguments in court felt like she was relitigating Donna's trial in real time at the sentencing. Right before we get there, though, Dr. Hamilton, once again, she was a corrections officer. So it's interesting. Dr. Hamilton, I got an alert, as everyone who follows her on the Vine system did. It wasn't even 12 hours, I don't think, before our alert started buzzing. Apparently, Tallahassee could not wait to get rid of Donna Adelson and shipped her out to the Florida Department of Corrections something like 9 a.m. the day after sentencing. So it was less than 12 hours. Could you just talk a little bit about what that process is like? She's at this women's center. What life is going to be like? We're, as they say in the news business, efforting to get some former inmates to come on, female inmates who are a little bit older, to talk about this. But what is she going through right now?
Well, one reason that Tallahassee would want to get rid of her is the cost. So, once you can move it to the state's budget, do so. And I understand too that she probably complained quite a lot. So the correction officers were probably pretty happy to see her go. But they have to do then the reception center, believe it's called the Women's Reception Center in Ocala. They have to do a significant intake of new inmates. And so it'll be probably a number of days, if not longer, where they're doing medical intake, mental health. And that will be significant here in terms of potential suicide risk, because she now is sentenced to life without parole. And so that's a red flag for anybody who's receiving that sentence. But they're also going to try to match her in terms of other things, rehabilitative program, potentially. That may not be as important, certainly, without the ability to be released. But sometimes they like to connect the prisoners up with some kind of programming, because it makes them a little bit more manageable from a correctional perspective. But how much Donna will be manageable in terms of her personality is something different. So there's a lot of administrative tasks, a lot of things that she'll have to be interviewed a number of times, probably a lot of surveys to fill out so that they can identify those various needs. But the other significant thing that tends to be common is that the state correctional system can operate very differently than the county jails. The county jails will have people generally are not there for very long, although Donna has been there for quite a long time, but that's because her case was so serious and it took longer. But with her initial attorney withdrawing, that certainly threw a wrench into it. But in any event, often the state facilities can be more violent than the county facilities. But for women, generally much less so. And for a woman her age, she's probably not going to be seen by other inmates as very threatening anyway. So for her, she's probably going to be better protected. But this is now a very different shift in her life, is a new routine, a new place. She's got to make new friends and maybe even bribe some of those friends to help protect her and such. And so for her at this stage of her life, is she's got some new challenges to face. But she's settled in terms of just a general incarceration environment. That was kind of to be expected. It's usually the initial months that are the hardest, and she'll just have to do that again. And in terms of acclimating and figuring out her particular facility once she lands there.
And do you think, because someone on the show, I think it was yesterday or the day before, she's turning 76, I believe, in February. Someone said she just won't make it past 80 because of how prison, wears and tears on you. I happen to think Donna is fairly strong. 75, 80 is not what 75, 80 used to be. I mean, do you see her diminishing that quickly?
Not just from the strength of her own personality. So, and she's got a lot of fight left in her, as we're seeing, is she has, not been bowed too much, as we saw even in her testimony earlier this week. So I think she's got a lot of vim and vigor in her, and her body is strong. She has many decades of good healthcare, good eating habits and such. And so her body is, it has a long way that it can go as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Adam Bluefire, it's been a minute since I've seen you. Back to Terry here, and then we'll get into Jackie Fulford. But he says, I don't think Wendy will be charged, not because she's not guilty, Terry, but because she's a lawyer herself and she's covered her back only like a lawyer could. Dr. Duggar's shaking her head no. It's too risky to go after her. I'll tell you this, though, before you answer, Terry Austin, I interviewed 3 different jurors, real smart jurors. All 3 of them said that they believe at this point there's enough to likely convict her. Not indict her, but convict her. What do you say about this comment?
I think there is enough to convict her beyond a reasonable doubt, not just to indict her for, probable cause, but you do have to think that you can have a victory at the end of the day when you bring that indictment. I think, we've heard her testify multiple times, and she has been given use immunity, meaning that she is not going to be charged based on what she says. But when you watch her language during that whole process, not even the details. I mean, I agree with you, Dr. Duggar, about where she drove and why didn't she go pick up the kids. All of those things to me means there's some guilt there, but just her body language and how she answered the questions. Yes, she's a lawyer, but no matter what your profession is, if you are innocent and you are answering questions under oath on the stand, regardless of whether or not you're getting this use immunity, they can still prosecute her, but just not based on her statements. Okay. So the way she spoke when she sat on the stand during Donna's case, she wasn't forthright. She wasn't forthcoming. She oftentimes paused and thought about her answers, or she didn't remember, she doesn't recall. I'm sorry. If I'm listening as a juror and observing as a legal analyst, I'm thinking you're guilty. And there are just so many times throughout all of the trials where we heard, she is around, she is listening, she is on some of the communications, not as much as, McManua and Garcia, the people who actually pulled the trigger or who were actually part of the planning, but she's involved. I mean, she was being very careful, as was Donna, but I think there's enough to put together that she had huge dislike for her husband, that she was being vindictive and nasty and mean, that she wasn't letting this go. She was close to her mother. I think there's enough there. When the trial started against Donna, I wanted to see what hard evidence. The defense kept arguing, and you even heard it when Donna was talking through her sentencing. There was no evidence here. This is all circumstantial, nothing hard. And we heard Jackie Fulford argue that during her opening and closing. There was plenty there. And what jurors don't sometimes understand, but this jury did. You're never going to have a videotape or a direct eyewitness. Most convictions are from circumstantial evidence. You have to put it all together. So the fact that you're not seeing an eyewitness or you're not seeing it with your own eyes doesn't mean you can't get a conviction. And, all due respect to the viewer. And again, I said this some time ago when I was on, I think a lot of the viewers and people out there in general, for some reason, think that, Wendy wasn't really involved, but I see her as a centerpiece. I don't know if I'd say mastermind, but she's integral to this entire horrible story.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Dr. Duggar, you had your hand raised.
I am not a legal analyst, but I went to middle and high school with Georgia, and I've known Jack Campbell, our state attorney, for a long time. And they are fierce and they are tough and they will fight and fight and fight until justice is served. So I have all confidence that they have this under control.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Did someone want to jump in there? Go. Was that you, Terry?
No, I was just agreeing. Yes, adamantly agreeing. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So now that you brought up Georgia and you went to school with her, tell us a little bit more. Georgia says she's going to come on our show after sentencing. So it's after sentencing. So we're hoping to get her on. But just tell us about Georgia a little bit, something that we might not know about her.
I don't know about that other than what I'm seeing in the courtroom is what I saw in middle school and high school. She was always tough, smart, fierce. I'm just so proud of Tallahassee.
Very nice. That's that's definitely the vibe she gives off. There's no doubt about that. How about Dr. Hamilton? One more question, then we'll get to the video. If it can be proven Wendy was lying, she had this derivative use immunity during some of her testimony, would she lose that immunity, Dr. Hamilton?
Not lose the immunity per se. She certainly could get charged with perjury, which is slightly different. But
yeah.
And so people are looking at that as well. Overall, I would applaud Georgia for her performance. The one thing I'd like her to do, and it's back to what Terry was talking about in terms of Wendy's performance, is I'd like Georgia to hold Wendy a little bit, her feet to the fire a little bit more about Georgia will ask a yes or no question and Wendy will go off on a tangent on something else. And so I wish she'd follow it up, which is answer yes or no. Because Wendy then seems to me sometimes to take control and answer the question she wants rather than the one that was posed before her. But that's just one minor complaint. Overall, Georgia, rates an A.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. This is Jackie Fulford on sentencing day, basically relitigating. We'll play it for a little bit, and then I'm sure I'll stop and have a question for one of the guests.
I want to, for this particular argument, relate exclusively to Luis Rivera. He testified in the trial, and through himself and other witnesses, Your Honor has heard what he did in this case. And what he did in this case compared to what the state has alleged and the jury found that Mrs. Adelson did, the culpability levels are very different. Mr. Rivera was allowed to enter a plea to second-degree murder. And although, as the PSI indicates, he received a sentence of 19 years in the Department of Corrections, that was run concurrent with a sentence he was already serving in a completely unrelated matter in a federal case where he got a 12-year sentence. So the number of years that he will actually serve for his participation in the homicide of Dan Markel is 7 years in the state of Florida Department of Corrections.
That's some fuzzy math, but okay.
His conduct, as Your Honor can recall, is that he traveled to Tallahassee sometime in June and scoped out the home of Danny Markel. engaged in some drug activity with Sigfredo Garcia, and then returned to South Florida. A few weeks later, he returned to Tallahassee and again scoped out Danny Markel's house. But he didn't just do that. Prior to arriving in Tallahassee, with himself knowing that he and Sigfredo Garcia were going to kill Danny Markel, he purchased and provided the very firearm that was used to kill Danny. He then followed Mr. Markel all the way to the gym, sitting in wait. What was he waiting for? He knew what he was waiting for. Mr. Markel did not. He had no clue that these men were outside in a car just waiting for him to go to a place where they could shoot and kill him.
I'm going to hold it right there. Terry, I'll start with you here. In essence, I mean, to me, and I'm not a lawyer, she's almost making the case here for the government. She's saying exactly what happened, that this person was following him. And if I'm correct, you know, with conspiracy charge, you don't have to be in that car. You just have to be a part of it. So what is happening here? What is the point she's trying to make? She's obviously talking about Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia, but these are the people that Donna Adelson is now convicted of hiring.
Well, I have a lot of criticisms for the way Jackie Fulford tried that case. What I think she's trying to do here is to say, look, Your Honor, Luis Rivera was the one who bought the gun. And, you know, he got 7 years for that crime. He got another 12 because he had a federal conviction, so total of 19, but 7 for this crime. So what I think she's trying to say is, look, my client, Donna, didn't buy any guns. She certainly didn't pull the trigger. She wasn't physically involved. Why do you want to put her away for life? I mean, it's mandatory. There's no option here. So the argument is falling on deaf ears. But I think if she's trying to show some sort of mitigation, maybe as it relates to the other 2 charges, then I think she's trying to say my client is nowhere near as guilty as Rivera. Now, you're absolutely right. The purpose of conspiracy, particularly conspiracy to commit murder, is you don't have to be the one who bought the gun or pulled the trigger or drove the car. You just have to be involved in that conspiracy, and you are all subject to the same penalties. It doesn't matter if you weren't the one who physically did it. But for some reason, I think here Fulford is trying to get the judge to look at Donna Adelson differently. And it fell on deaf ears. He obviously had already made up his mind, and she's got the mandatory life anyway, but he also gave her the full amount for the solicitation and, you know, for the conspiracy. So, you know, I think that she did what she could, but it wasn't enough.
Okay. Let's
Oh, can I add on there then?
Yeah. Please, Dr. I'm gonna keep playing, but go ahead, please.
So Jackie engages often in flawed legal arguments. So when you are in a conspiracy with other people, you are legally responsible for everything that they have done. So everything she's pointing out that Luis Rivera did then gets attached to Donna herself. And she's reminding everybody about what a really heinous crime this was, which also is attached to Donna. And then the other thing is the funny math, which your guest on the particular episode mentioned. And the funny math is the 19 versus the 12. And so she's trying to assert that Rivera really only got 7 years. And no, he got 19. And nobody really, well, the judge is trying to be nice and such. She probably understood, but that was incorrect math, which I noticed when she first said it as well.
Yeah, interesting. Let's keep playing this part of it out here.
And they waited until he exercised. They watched him get back into his vehicle, and then, like hunters, traveled and followed all of this time period straight to his home. And there was no hesitation. He knew exactly what they were going to do. Without any hesitation, they pulled right in behind Danny. Danny's car was still running. The garage door was up, and Sigfredo Garcia exits the car and shoots Danny Markel, having done nothing to these men, in the head twice. How Mr. Markel survived, I don't know. The point here is, Judge, that over time, reading different things, you've heard a lot of arguments about what Mrs. Adelson's participation allegedly was. But when it comes down to it, and I didn't mention, but Luis Rivera did have an extensive criminal history at the time that he committed this offense. What actually came out at trial with respect to Mrs. Adelson, and I'm saying this, understanding, as you've learned, that Mrs. Adelson still maintains that she is innocent of this conduct. But what the state was able to show through their testimony and evidence was that the role that she played, according to them in the prosecution, was very minimal.
Let me just get Dr. Duggar. You're not an attorney, but you're a person that's been following this case. What are your thoughts on Jackie Fulford? That's that one piece of sound.
Well, she's speaking out of both sides of her mouth in terms of, oh, well, she didn't do it, but if she did it, it's not that bad because these other guys are way worse. I think she's going, this is my non-legal opinion. She's going with the whole, it's not fair, and she needs a tattle phone. That would be my diagnosis.
Yeah. This is the latest, newest mugshot of Donna Adelson as a piece of property of the Florida State Department of Corrections. This is her latest mugshot. She looks a little defiant, chin up, looking back at the camera there. Terry Austin, the thing that Jackie Fulford said at the end of that clip right there was that, in essence, even the government was minimizing. So she's twisting the word. She said basically that the government was minimizing the role of Donna Adelson, but this is a conspiracy case. So she's taking the fact that Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia were there that day to say, look, these were the main players, not my client Donna Adelson. She maintains her innocence. But again, conspiracy does not mean that you have to sit there and be the one holding the weapon, right?
That's exactly right. And so all of these arguments, and I was wondering why she went into the, heinous nature of the crime. He was shot twice in the head. It's a miracle he survived as long as he did. Yeah. I mean, that is pointing out to the judge that Donna Adelson was convicted of a real horrible crime because she was involved in the murder. She's charged with the conspiracy. She's charged with the solicitation. She was found guilty on all counts. And so to recreate this for the judge doesn't help her case. It's misplaced. What she should have been doing there, in my opinion, and it really would only relate to the other two charges, not the murder charge, because that, again, as we've all said, is mandatory life. But if she wanted to have that reduced, talk about she's a good person. She has no crime record really before this. She's never been indicted. She's never been found guilty. She's contributed to the community. I mean, talk about what a wonderful person she is, and how I suppose you could say she is still maintaining her innocence, because that's going to be protected on appeal. And so those are the types of things that she should be doing. But instead, she's talking about the crime that she's been convicted of, and that's not going to minimize that sentence for the judge. One other thing I'm going to add, I don't think we've talked about it today, but I thought it was really interesting, and it was because of the appeal. They argued right before Donna spoke that she didn't want to do it under oath, and she didn't want to do it under oath, I believe, to protect on appeal, and that can't be used against her. So I do find it a very interesting argument. The judge actually had to read the citations that the defense gave. I think Zellman stood up and said, what the citations were, and the judge looked at it and he agreed that you could do it without being under oath. But I think the words could still be used against her. I was actually, prior to this podcast, trying to research, because I've not seen this situation before, where during sentencing, the defendant speaks but not under oath. In my humble opinion, and maybe Melissa, I don't know, but in my humble opinion, I think her words could still be used against her. You can't be held, for perjury charges because you weren't under oath. But she made these statements, and they could come in even though they are I suppose they would be deemed out of court assertions, so they'd be hearsay, but I'm sure there's an exception there. It's just an odd situation that I haven't heard before. So I thought it was an interesting twist. And I'm unclear right now on how it could or could not be used against her.
Yeah, the guest we talked to had never heard of an attorney asking for an unsworn statement. And they pointed out the irony at the end of Donna's statement. She says, "I swear I never had anything to do with this." So she is swearing under oath, even though she asked not to be sworn in. But I am not an attorney, but somewhere in the law, there's got to be some sort of exception to the fact that a murder defendant is on the stand saying all this stuff. It's got to be, you've got to be able to, it's somehow,
If I find an answer, I will send it to you.
Please do.
Yes.
Dr. Hamilton, you're the law professor. Now, Castigar goes above my head here, but Julia DeNurse, does there have to be a Castigar hearing before Wendy could be indicted? I don't know if, a lot of people are not familiar, including lawyers, with Castigar, so I don't know how familiar you are, Dr. Hamilton, but if you'd like to address that.
I think Castigar is more about if the government gives immunity, can you also require them to testify because of Fifth Amendment? So I don't think that's relevant to directly to being able to indict her, but that's as much as I know about Castigar. But if I can go a little bit more into the unsworn testimony, because I did some digging today on that, because I was also curious.
Yeah.
And in a couple of the legal issues in the sentencing, the defense counsel, I'm going to be shy a little away from saying they misrepresented to the judge, but they did not fully divulge to the judge some of the case law that they mentioned. And so there was some case law in Florida that defendants have some right to give what's called an allocution, which is unsworn testimony in terms of trying to convince the judge to be more lenient. But what happened here is that, in addition, this hearing was also about a departure argument. And so I found case law, more recent case law than what they mentioned, which indicates that if the defendant is also testifying in the same circumstance where there's a departure argument, then the judge could have said, any statement you have in terms of the departure has to be sworn subject to cross-examination. And the same case also indicated that the rule that the defense counsel cited, which is 3.720 for those who are following, itself does not actually say that the ability of the defendant to talk must be unsworn. That was simply a case law, and that a case that came after that one, the specific case Hill that the defense counsel mentioned, another case had said that it was not a fundamental error to not allow that. And so, sorry, I know I included a whole bunch of legal things in there, but like Terry, I was also interested in, it just came out of left field, I think, to a lot of attorneys, this idea of unsworn testimony by a defendant. But I think that is an example of one of the complaints about this sentencing hearing was that not all of the arguments were in writing, done beforehand with all of the case support for that, because that would have given the opportunity for the judge, as well as the prosecution, to have a little bit more time to challenge the defense counsel's promotion of these cases that were out of context and somewhat overruled.
Yeah, these are great points. Go ahead, Dr. Duggar. I like that the only other person who raises their hand is my mom. So warm
I'm
my
a
heart.
former teacher.
Oh,
so
I love it.
That's what you get. One thing that I haven't heard anyone talk about is, well, everybody's talking about I don't understand, like, why have a problem with lying now? Why not want to be sworn now when the whole family lies all over the place? But as part of Donna's unsworn statement, she said that Danny would not like what was happening to her, which I thought was very ironic, because if I understand things correctly, and perhaps you all know more, Danny's specialty was retributive.
Justice. Retributive.
Yes.
Justice.
And so, like, she just keeps saying things. And that was a lie. Danny would have wanted her to have consequences for her actions.
Yeah, a great point. Great point. And I mean, Donna, and we're gonna get to Donna in a few. I mean, she not only does she appropriate his nickname, but she talks about how Danny would be upset at the way this case was handled legally, which is, I mean, just the highest level of chutzpah, which is a word that best describes how she, responds to all of this. But one of the other things, real quick, Terry Austin, that I just noticed watching Jackie Fulford, she uses the same descriptive adjectives as Donna in her sentencing statement, which is hunted. They were hunted down, which leads me to believe that either Jackie wrote Donna's statement or Donna wrote Jackie's statement, or vice versa, or they conspired about their statements. I mean, it'd be rare for both of them to use the phrase that Dan was hunted down. What's happening there? It seems like it's obviously done intentionally for some sort of end, to achieve some sort of end.
Exactly. I think that when you have your client making a statement, you review that statement and you make sure, or she should have made sure, that it was a proper allocution. And she did not. You are not supposed to make arguments retrying the case or arguments for appeal. You are doing an allocution because you are trying to get the judge to decrease your sentence. You are giving him the grounds for a departure on the sentence. That's not what they did here. So I believe Fulford probably reviewed what Donna was going to say and maybe suggested some of that wording. And I'm not sure if Donna would have reviewed Jackie's statement, but that's a possibility as well. Donna certainly would be contributing to what her attorney is going to say on her behalf. So there is often sometimes that sort of, I guess they work together to make sure that the final message to the judge is consistent. And I think they probably did collaborate a bit on that. And that's why you saw, actually, they were making the same types of arguments. And, I think they used those phrases because they did want that to hit home as far as the judge was concerned.
All right. This is now Jackie Fulford, where she starts to throw Donna's own son, her beloved Charlie, under the bus. Let's watch this, and then we'll close out with a little Donna, a little Harvey.
Charlie Adelson. According to the testimony in this trial and his own, Charlie Adelson wanted Danny Markel dead.
Boom. I'm just going to stop that right there. I mean, that is a mind-blowing. Terry Austin, why? I mean, why even go there? Do you think Donna was the impetus here? And if I'm Charlie Adelson sitting in prison in South Dakota, running from the Latin Kings gangs, having done this for his mother and his sister, reportedly, I'm thinking about flipping on either of these people now.
It's an incredible statement. And I heard her say it and I thought, wait, did she say Charlie? Or was she talking about Rivera or Garcia? She said Charlie. And that's Donna's son. And, yes, I think what she was trying to do is to say, again, Donna had a minor role. She had nothing to do with this. It was everybody else, including Charlie, which is a very shocking statement when you know that Donna is speaking to Jackie. They're coordinating the defense. And is this what Donna is thinking? That Charlie was behind it all? It is a very odd statement to make. Yes, he's already convicted. He's already serving time. He's in for life. Maybe there's no harm, no foul because, it's already water under the bridge. But is it necessary to say that? I mean, is it something that they're going to point to on appeal maybe? I found it very surprising, and I'm surprised that Donna would have allowed that to occur. But you know what? This family is strange. And, they pointed fingers at each other. So I don't know why anything surprises me at this point.
Yeah, that might be the understatement of the year. I didn't mean to stop it that early on, but when you hear that and you look, Charlie's father is right behind him. He's got to be a proud father. His son is a convicted killer and his wife is now a convicted killer. What a way to end your existence on planet Earth. But all right, I'm going to take this back a hair and here we go.
Charlie Adelson. According to the testimony in this trial and his own, Charlie Adelson wanted Danny Markel dead. So on his close or very first date with Catherine Magbanawa, he asks her out in public at Halloween, some Halloween function, hey, do you know anybody who could get somebody killed? According to her testimony, she followed through with that. With Charlie Adelson, never with Donna Adelson, never communicated with her in any way about this. She worked then, if that's what happened and that's what's been testified to, she worked with Charlie Adelson from October of 2013 until Danny Markel was brutally killed in July of 2014. That entire period, and there's evidence, she admitted to most of it, to her conduct, and there's evidence that was presented in this trial in Charlie's that that's what happened. They made this plan, and that his stapled money was used to pay the killers in this case some $130,000 in cash that was divided up amongst Sigfredo Garcia. Sorry, my mouth was getting dry. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
No wonder. Talking a mile a minute.
Thank you, Judge. It was divided up between Sigfredo Garcia, Catherine Magbanawa, and Luis Rivera. She then stayed in contact with Charlie Adelson. She convinced Charlie Adelson to get paychecks written to her, and she received those paychecks each time from Charlie Adelson.
I'm going to hold it right there. I mean, Dr. Hamilton, isn't she incriminating directly now Donna? Because we know Donna is the one cutting the checks, and she's saying in open court here what was going on. I mean, step by step here. She's like basically handing the judge the government's argument.
Jackie seems to me to have a bit of muddled thinking. So whatever legal ability she has, I think is coming from her many years of experience, but she just does not make sense a lot of the times. But did you see her? She went back and I think she stole Donna's bottle of water and Donna gives her the stink eye.
I did not notice that. That's kind of funny. And I think we're coming up. There's a section here where I believe she incriminates Donna. So let's listen for that too. I don't know if we're going to get it in this clip, but she almost certainly mentions Donna, which is really odd too. I don't know if it's senility, what's happening, but let's watch here.
So for what Catherine Magbanawa did and what Charlie Adelson did, the evidence in this case shows it went far beyond what the state's evidence showed that Donna did.
Look at George's face.
Including the time that Danny was killed. So again, if you're going to rate the level of culpability in this case and consider Mrs. Adelson's conduct as compared to those, they're asking that she get the same sentence as both of the people who killed, well, one person that did the killing, Sigfredo, a far more extensive sentence than Luis Rivera, who participated in the killing himself and only got 7 years. The same as Catherine Magbanawa, that apparently worked on this, according to the evidence, for many, many months and stayed involved even after that. Charlie Adelson is the only one who got a higher sentence. His sentence was life on count 1, the homicide, followed by 30 years on count 2 and another 30 years on count 3, so everything being run consecutively. The evidence that the state has presented is that Charlie Adelson is the one who masterminded this.
Dr. Hamilton, and just none of that makes sense to me. I mean, because again, this is conspiracy. It doesn't really matter. I don't think, Donna is considered to be as much a part of this as any of the other convicted killers that she was just discussing, who have all gotten life sentences.
Well, actually more so. So a lot of people think that the person who hires somebody else, so the murder for hire is worse than the actual gunman. So that kind of flips it on its own as well. And did anybody also notice that Donna suddenly can hear quite well without headphones?
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Dr. Hamilton.
I was just going to say, for Jackie, it always has seemed to me that her audience has been Donna. Mm-hmm. So even at the beginning of this sentencing hearing, Josh Zellman, he introduces himself as the defense counsel, and then Jackie gets up and says, I'm here basically for Miss Adelson. So to me, it's always seemed like that's who she's trying to please, which makes sense because that's the one who's paying her. This could be her last legal job, I think. And so that's also, I think, helps explain why they are using the same language, meaning Jackie and Donna often uses the same language because Jackie is trying to mimic what Donna wants and using the language that Donna wants, because Donna is very specific about certain words that she uses and how she conveys things and how she wants people portrayed. And I think Jackie's good enough in terms of picking up what Donna wants and then reconveying it. And that's her audience, I believe.
Yeah. Terry, another point that I read off the top, this is a direct quote from Jackie Fulford. To the judge, Mrs. Adelson maintaining her innocence could not have shown more remorse. Why even say that? Because now you're just underscoring the fact that she's remorseless.
Well, and it's interesting. Was she in another courtroom all of this time? Because there was absolutely no remorse. And I think, obviously you heard the judge when he gave his sentencing. One of the things that he said was, you're showing no remorse. And he stopped her at one point and he said, listen, you can say what you want to say. I'm going to let you continue. But, as far as your sentence is concerned, you're showing no remorse. And so when Jackie Fulford got up and said that she was showing remorse, or she couldn't have shown more remorse, I was thinking, where, when, how? She didn't speak during the trial, but the way she moved, the way she looked, the way she nodded her head. I actually was watching one of the doctors, I think it's Dr. G, talk about body language. And that's the top thing that he said, is that throughout she was defiant. She didn't show any remorse. He talked about the way her eyebrows moved, the way she gritted her lips. And that was throughout the trial. And then, of course, when she got the verdict, she was distraught and upset, but she was still in denial. And now during sentencing, you see the same thing. She is upset. Her one allocution, the one opportunity she has to say something, she's angry and she's blaming the jury. She's blaming the court. Harvey did the same thing, which I have to say, all along, he's sitting there not saying anything. And as an objective viewer, you might think, okay, he's not in any of the communications. Maybe he's innocent, but his anger during his statement really did surprise me. The two of them being very angry, I think, shows when they've had communications together, there is no remorse. She has not had any remorse. She didn't communicate that to Harvey. The two of them together are both very angry that the prosecution has come after them, and they can't believe that this has happened. And so I think that's why we're seeing surprise when you hear Jackie Fulford say something like she couldn't be more remorseful, when in fact it is literally just the opposite. I feel like she must have been in another trial and not this trial, because based on Donna's body language the whole time and based on her statement during the sentencing process, there was no remorse at all.
Gretchen here reminding us, then Judge Everett, who's awesome, said it took a lot of planning. Judge Everett, she said, was gold. To Dr. Duggar, you've been in Tallahassee for decades, seeing the courtroom culture up close. I mean, what are you making of Jackie Fulford, just, I guess, holistically here as Donna's attorney?
Embarrassing. I understand that she was paid to represent her client, but couldn't we have done better? I think it all goes down to Donna and probably Harvey and Wendy and everybody else. They felt entitled to do what they wanted to do, and then they're shocked that they're in trouble for it. And Jackie has been trying to deliver that message, and it has failed, because you can't murder people that are inconvenient.
Yeah. These two comments, Reborica here, they're mad they all have all that money and still being held accountable. Like, how dare they? And then Annie K here, This family has hubris, entitlement, manipulation, sheer gall, and abundance. Those are all good ways to describe it. Rachel D here. This is the first time I've ever heard Harvey speak, and it all makes sense. Now, I'll tell you, my own mother said it a million times from day one that we've covered this case, believes he's complicit. Speaking of Harvey, this is him. We'll listen to him for a little bit, get a little bit of Donna, and then we will get some final thoughts.
I have been Donna Adelson's husband for over 50 years. My wife sacrificed everything so that she could pour her heart and soul into our children, our grandchildren, and our marriage. This summer was our 54th wedding anniversary, and I had to spend it without her, hand in mine. She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong. I have listened, watched, and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial, and I could not help but scream in my mind by the witnesses that were brought forward by the prosecution who told outright lies. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. Danny's parents contend that they have never seen their grandchild. But for years they say they've never seen her. But Wendy has shared.
This is just sickening. I'm going to play it out. The guy can't even get it right. He's talking about a singular grandchild when they have two. But Terry, before I continue to play it, we hadn't heard him speak, and people always kind of portray him as this meek, kind of back in the shadows figure. I think he's anything but. I got a very strange vibe off of him when I was in Tallahassee. It's almost mob-esque, like where he's kind of the soft-spoken guy, but he is calling the shots. The fact that they literally throw the Markels under the bus and refer to them as liars is about as low as you can go at a sentencing hearing, isn't it?
It is the worst comment I've heard at any sentencing. The Markels have gone through an eternity of hell, basically. And, having to live with your son being murdered in such a heinous fashion. Great people, good people, loving people. I look at Ruth and I think, oh my gosh, and her husband as well. They are just good people. And I went back after Harvey said that to listen to what the victim impact statements were from the prosecution when Ruth spoke, because that occurred right after the verdict. She didn't say that. She didn't say, I've never seen my grandchildren. The way she stated it was, we rarely get an opportunity. It's very controlled. It's either on the phone. She did not say what Harvey said she said. So for him to attack her and not even be accurate really, to me, put him in another light. Prior to listening to him, I think, like many other people, my impression was he's in the background, Donna's in charge. I don't think that anymore. And I was angered by what he said, the entire statement, but that particular piece of it really made me, I already don't like them, but I was furious that he could attack a family who has gone through so much grief for so many years.
Yeah, very well said. I'm going to take it back a hair. And if you listen, he's talking about, I don't know if it's senility, but he's just talking about his grandchild. He has grandchildren. Here we go.
But apparently you can. Danny's parents contend that they have never seen their grandchild. But for years they say they've never seen her. But Wendy has shared with me pictures and videos and letters from their visits. They have suffered immensely at the loss of their son, but they also contend to tell lies to the court about our grandchildren. Donna has always been a loving and caring wife and is innocent of the charges. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided news pieces and social media.
Doctor, Ms. Fulford, this has nothing to do with the character of the defendant or relates to sentencing.
May I just one moment, please?
Go ahead.
All right, thank you for letting me continue. Donna did not participate in the heinous acts that she was convicted of doing.
We're back to
You're
this.
sending an innocent woman to prison. You have taken my wife and you have taken my life as well. And for what? This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong.
Dr. Hamilton, he talks about a singular female grandchild. He has 2 grandsons. Yep. I don't know what's happening there. But besides the point, you really see this sort of anger flare from him. Just your reaction to hearing him speak, I guess, for the first time.
Yes, I had been one of the ones who'd been convinced all this time that he was kind of meek and mild and in the background. And this paints a much different picture of him. And so the defense have always been trying to get the court of public opinion. They've not been very successful, but the court of public opinion on Harvey has, I think, probably turned quite dramatically. And I also think, maybe we should do some digging under the old Adelson Institute, because there may be bodies buried under there once I look at him. And if he has a grudge, who knows what he can do. And just overall, this case seems to be ripe for a law school class on what not to do.
Yeah, good point. Look, 2 of the family members are convicted, all kidding aside, 2 are convicted of a murder for hire plot. Could be dangerous that this guy is walking the streets. You just don't know. Joel, have you spoken to Markels? I have not. This is very heavy stuff. Just happened 2 days ago. I'll reach out to, Phil and Ruth and see how they're doing. I'm sure that they are upset about the way this all transpired. At the same time, they're very resilient, and I know they're not going to let Harvey's words bother them. But Stacey, you and I are kind of the lay people here. You're the Tallahassean, though. What do you make of Harvey?
Well, I was expecting him to be meek and mild, and that was not meek and mild. And what I'm seeing with the whole Adelson family is this abuse technique of DARVO, which is defend, attack, reverse, victim, offender. They're the ones who are the poor victims and telling the truth, and the hitman should get in trouble and not them. And they're just lying. They're just lying and blaming everyone else. I've met Ruth Markel. She is fabulous. She absolutely did not say that she had never seen the children. She said that she rarely saw the children, I believe only after the legislative efforts, and very supervised. So the Adelsons, they're just liars, and they do what they want.
I'm going to play out a little bit of Donna. She, of course, with the crocodile tears. And we'll listen.
No tears.
Yeah, no tears. Correct. Correct.
Exactly.
And then we'll get some final thoughts on the back end of this.
Danny was a brilliant legal scholar. He would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are 2 crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit.
Brilliant.
I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside of Tallahassee. 11 years ago, Danny was murdered and taken from all of us who loved him. For the past 9.5 years, the state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed, nor could I ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this. And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
And to Dr. Hamilton's point, not a single tear there, and she did swear on her life, even though she refused to be sworn in. Stacey, to you, what do you think Tallahasseans are thinking about this statement?
It's just shameful. Like take responsibility. She did it. Take responsibility. Also, in the trial, it was extremely clear how she felt about him, which is understandable given the circumstances. But she needs to take responsibility for what she did. It's just unacceptable.
And Terry, she speaks on behalf basically of Dan Markel. Like, she appropriates him this whole sentencing hearing. It's sickening. He got an unfair shake and I got an unfair shake.
Yeah, the one thing that I didn't like there were many things I didn't like about Harvey's statement, but the one thing I didn't like about his statement was the fact that he attacked the Markels. The one thing that I really didn't like about Donna's allocution is not only is she not taking responsibility, but she is acting as though Dan is her friend and Danny this, Danny that. That's insulting. That's insulting to the Markels. She was not friendly with him. She did not like him. She expressed that multiple times throughout, we saw the communications. And so for her to act like Dan would be on her side and he's my friend and I care about him and, all of that, that's the piece of her statement that really annoyed me. She's obviously allowed to say what she wants to say, although the judge put her in her place because an allocution is supposed to be saying why you shouldn't be sentenced for as harsh as the prosecution wants. But when you start acting like, you had a relationship that you never had, that's a problem for me. And I think it does make the family, and I'm thinking about the family all the time, it makes the family feel even worse. Think of all the things, and I'm not a psychologist, but think of all the things that they have to go through. It's like reliving the death. Not only was their son brutally murdered, but now they have to listen to this woman act like she had a good relationship and that she cared. And it's just not true and it's just not fair.
Dr. Hamilton, and then we'll get some final thoughts here. She says, and I quote here, "If I had known about this plan, I would have stopped it." I don't think I've ever heard more hollow words in my life, Dr. Hamilton. But to get up there in court, knowing that the Markels are on that Zoom hearing, listening to this and the rest of the world, I guess it is either disgraceful or shameful.
Yes, it is. And so she's, relitigating many of the issues in the trial as the judge called her out on. But I just was wondering, so she wants a trial outside of Tallahassee. I wonder if she wanted a trial in Vietnam, if that would have satisfied her. But also I'm starting to wonder about Harvey as well, in terms of messing up his grandchildren and grandsons, is maybe he was not so close to the grandchildren, because remember that he has cut off Rob and all of Rob's kids. So his other grandkids have been disposable as well. Therefore, maybe, I know one of the theories was killing Dan was a birthday present, but maybe Harvey really wasn't as attached to those kids. And that's why he's butchering their names and their gender as well. And now, what very surprisingly, well, maybe it shouldn't be with this family, but they have, cut off Charlie, or at least they threw him under the bus. And then also notice who's not there is Wendy.
Yeah.
So didn't even show up to support her mother in this really perhaps worst day of her life. And she's just nowhere.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, if Donna's so innocent, Harvey are so innocent, why weren't they at Charlie's trial? What were they afraid of? It's just it goes around and around. This has been an amazing panel. If you're joining us a little bit later, at the very beginning, Dr. Stacy Walton Duggar, first-time best guest, shared an unbelievable story. Her ex-husband was Dan Markel's divorce attorney, and after the relocation hearing in 2013, about a year in advance of the killings, her ex-husband told her that Dan would be essentially executed by the Adelsons, which is what ended up happening. She is a lifelong Tallahassee resident, and as I said, the ex-wife of Dan Markel's divorce attorney. Dr. Duggar, thanks for being here. Your final thoughts today.
Well, first of all, we still need more justice for Danny Markel. We're not done. I think we have 2 to go. And also, I just want to commend Ruth and Phil and Shelley. They have showed up. Ruth is just the mother of the century. She had an accident before the last trial, or right at the beginning. She kept showing up, and she's just someone we should look up to. Amazing. And the whole family is amazing.
Yeah. Ruth's book, The Unveiling, captures a lot of this. And, Phil, Ruth, Shelley, great people. And I'm able to call them friends. So I'm happy about that. Dr. Melissa Hamilton, also a friend now. She's on the show frequently, a former corrections officer, a former police officer, now professor of law in the UK at the University of Surrey. Dr. Hamilton, you think we're going to get more justice in this case? Your final thoughts here?
Yes. Yes. Things are still to come, I am sure, as we have been told to stay tuned. Just a couple of things. I'm a sentencing scholar, very interested in sentencing hearings, never seen one quite like this. In particular, somebody standing up and calling a judge biased right to his face. And then I don't recall his name, the doctor legislator who called this simply a domestic. And it's
Dr. Ben Graber. Dr. Ben Graber.
Yeah. He was a trip as well.
Yeah, I didn't know you were a scholar in sentencing. This is interesting. So, I mean, you kind of said it just now, but how does this compare to other sentencings that you have either studied or watched, academically speaking?
So this is one of the downsides of having this publicized in terms of being on television. You would never see a sentencing hearing like this that was not on television and theater for all the people included in, which reminds me of him, Ben himself he would never have done this if he wasn't going to be on television. And just the length that it went to in terms of timing and such, and how much the judge was deferential, I think, was a little bit more. So yeah, this is theater more than a sentencing hearing, just bizarre things I've never seen in hearings before.
Yeah. And by the way, thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton. Always an amazing guest. And then Terry Austin, who was an attorney and legal analyst. One of the things Donna doesn't cry about is her telling you that they then change her grandchildren's name from Markel to Adelson and really don't allow visits. Really, the Markels, I can tell you this, have never said that they're not allowed visits, but I can tell you, not firsthand, but just by talking to them, it's never easy and they're very infrequent. And Phil especially is very much a family man. And I know it breaks his heart that he can't do the things a grandfather does with their grandchildren, whether it's taking them fishing, he talks about teaching them to play ice hockey because he grew up in Montreal and moved to Toronto a little bit later in life. So it's heartbreaking from that perspective. But where do you think, Terry Austin, that we go from here? It sounds like you have faith in the system that either Harvey and or Wendy will be next. But what's your thinking in the short term?
Well, you're right. I have faith in the system, but I have extreme faith in Georgia Kaufman. I think she has gone after these prosecutions the correct way, in the right order. She first took the people who were physically or literally involved. So Rivera Garcia and Meg Benoit got those convictions. Then she moved on to the Adelsons, and she had already planned that she was going to go after Charlie and then Donna. And I think that was a good order. I do believe, and she did say, stay tuned, that we mentioned, I do believe she is going to now go after Wendy, and perhaps, and I would not have said this before until I heard the statement that Harvey made, perhaps she will go after Harvey if she has the evidence. So the prosecution has done an amazing job. My final thought is, if we had prosecutors like this across the country, we'd have more convictions. Kudos to Georgia Kaufman. Kudos to that office. Great job.
Yeah, and don't forget Sarah Catherine Dugan, who is I think vying for a judgeship, which I'm sure she will get. And Georgia Kaufman, just this past year, named Prosecutor of the Year in the entire state of Florida. So to Terry's point, they're doing a phenomenal job. And Dr. Duggar knows this better than anyone. She is a competitor. Her father was an FSU quarterback, an NFL football player, and she's got that competitive spirit in her blood. This was a great panel. Huge thanks again to Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Duggar, Terry Austin, and we will see you tomorrow night with another show. And I'm working on getting Dr. G in here for some body language perspective on this sentencing hearing for Friday. And I told Carm, she's on deck, and she said, I'm not doing it every week. I don't want to do it every week. So I have to fight with my mother about getting her on Fridays. She thinks she's too important to come on every Friday, but we'll see how that ends. I'll let you know how that battle ends. Love you, America. Thank you, guests. Guests, stick around one quick second.